Hello and welcome to the Overlap Rugby podcast. This is number 45. Under ordinary circumstances, a week such as this, Shane was away. We wouldn't be doing a show. He was just it was going to be one of those weeks where it worked out, but that way. But we made the effort. We're late in the week, we know, but we're going to be doing just an abridged version of our show just to cover the big games of the weekend, which simply couldn't go uncovered.
Yeah, it would have been a notable absence.
There has not been enough talk about it. That's the thing.
Well, there's that.
We're filling that void.
Yeah, obviously, people pining for it. But no, also felt needed to get something out on it. So even though we usually do cover things like the lesser covered Rugby Europe Championship and America's Rugby
we'll
Championship, we'll mention the results and stuff. But
Uruguay got it done, and the America's Rugby Championship came to its conclusion.
True.
The Rugby Europe Championship is going to come to its conclusion this weekend. All of that is relevant. We won't be able to cover it. We will cover it in more depth next week. And
where it'll all settle down and we'll be able to sift through the debris of the aftermath of it. But yeah, definitely in advance of this weekend we need to be looking nowhere else than the Six Nations. Going to get a little bit myopic on the show, which is normally we're more big picture, but this is very much a stacked Saturday card of games.
It is indeed.
I suppose one of the benefits of shooting this late is that we actually have access to the teams rather than just kind of spitballing and conjecture.
And usually getting most of it right.
Usually, but it's caught us out one or two times where we've ended up going on a big rant about how if one guy's injured and then it turns out he's just named in the team. And it's like, well, that's like it's useless now. But so luckily none of that. So we're just going to basically preview, I think, the three games from the weekend. And we were going to do more detailed previews, individual or reviews even of last weekend's, but we'll kind of encompass that into the points about the games to come, because that's all really what is relevant about for
100%.
What are they playing for, if not the final weekend of the Six Nations,
Yeah.
So which one do we starting with first?
Well, we'll go as we've been going in chronological order. The early kickoff is between Italy and France. Earlier in the this was the game that Italy would have picked out earlier since last year, and
definitely before the tournament anyway.
That this was the game perhaps to target in Rome. They've been playing well in Rome this year against definitely a flaky, imbalanced and not constantly changing and French team.
Definitely. What's probably freshly difficult for them as a result of just how the Six Nations has gone is just that, like, the eyeballs in France do watch the Six Nations, and there has been a sense enough of shame to kind of spur on a little something about the change and a little bit of something to kind of kick on. They've probably landed on closer to a mix that works for them as well, so with all that they're slightly dangerous, and off the back of a shutout performance basically that where they just couldn't get anything off despite feeling optimistic about themselves in Dublin, they'll probably be going to Rome feeling like they won't be facing anything like that kind of monster, and they'll
chance to
show
kind of
finish something. It's kind of similar to all French World Cup cycles. They've just left it off till the very last minute, and now they're kind of seeing exam time coming up and going like, oh, World Cup, oh yeah, I forgot about that, let's actually try and be really good at rugby, which we know and we've been saying the whole time that actually could be, because they are
in fact more so even than maybe you would have said last November. There's now very much in the position to actually put something together, in my view. I mean, there's a lot of criticism coming off the Dublin game last weekend that in my view is a bit overblown. There are obviously some problems and still there's a structure and setup and professionalism deficiency going on when it comes to them compared to the big three in Europe at the moment. But what they do have is a lot of very, very good players, a lot of optimism, a lot of heads up rugby. They're much fitter than the team that was selected at the start of the tournament.
That's true.
Teams that you'd be used to. They can go 80 minutes. They can make tackles. Their issue last week was just that they were, facing the Ireland team, in my view, of 2018, which was, it was too good for them. They had them pegged back early doors. They did have some issues in the backfield at the start of that game that let Ireland out. But they were trapped and bullied and beaten up before they got a chance to show what they can do.
Get the ball, similar to that Toulouse game in Dublin, where that high-flying Toulouse team came and then, like, Leinster took them through phase after phase. It was very similar in that Ireland just made them, before they knew anything about anything, they had already made like an obscene amount of tackles, and by the end of the first half it was like 120 something tackles. That's like crazy numbers for even a full test match, let alone a first half. So like the dominance was telling, and it was leading to fatigue based errors in kind of
in everything.
In everything, really. It's hard to signal in. Like occasionally, you look at a play and it's very bad optically, and you think that that's just a horrendous horror play. But the context of it is that it's like coming off.
Exactly.
It's all of this pressure that's being built.
There was a lot of post-match analysis during that game that was unfair to the French in the sense that it was just taking, like the Keith Earls try, a moment from the game where Demba Bamba made the slip up and just removing all context from it.
Yeah.
The fact that, Bamba had been really beaten up in the scrum early doors.
Yeah.
As we'd kind of said pre-match, he scrums very high against a guy like Cian Healy.
Who's all nerdy about exactly that. Angles in the engage, and he's just got the upper hand. And again, drawing the parallel back where we had Famuina in that match against Toulouse, it's like when there's slight errors there, scrum time is a great way to exploit them. And if you've got a bit of a knock come scrumming down with Cian Healy, it's going to be a seriously sore affair. And by the end of it, and then sure enough, in the open play, you don't look like yourself and you make silly looking errors that are a bad picture.
He had actually gone off hurt in that game. It taking the scrum from the French wounds their pride and
not has a knock-on effect throughout their whole game.
And so he was sort of beaten up, not probably 100% there physically, perhaps not 100% there mentally, and also in this place where his pride is a bit wounded and he's on tilt, and he sees CJ Stander of all men around the corner of the mall just carrying into the guy next to him, and all day long and all season long and all career long, your CJ mantra is to just take the contact and go forward and likely win the contact. So Bamba is thinking, no, he's going to charge into this guy next to me, I'm going to go and I'm going to hit him and I'm going to smash things, and it's going to be a positive moment for me. And lo and behold, that's the error that Ireland have been looking for and isolated, and CJ of all men is tasked with popping the ball back inside to Earls.
It's a good little bit of subterfuge to have CJ in that role,
totally,
because no one's going to buy it. All the tape that they see shows CJ just trucking that up. That's definitely what I thought was like.
They were beaten.
They were just beaten
by a very good team.
They were like thoroughly outmatched. But that's not to say and some of the analysis they were like. I did hear someone sum it up saying they were closer to the France that played against England and Scotland, and like personnel wise and even aspects of the performance wise, I wouldn't agree, including the fatigue thing. You can point to the backfield coverage, and like even players like Ramos were not beaten up by like Demba Bamba, but were like looking very frustrated because they just hadn't seen any ball and had occasionally had to make tackles or reads or being penal. All you see of them is kind of an Ireland play where it nearly gets out to Ramos, but then it's the inside man and he has to fan out again. It's like that's been his contribution to the whole game. And there's just no way for those playmakers to play themselves in. And that's kind of the French team love to get their hands on the ball early, and that was what was deprived of them. And then even like what's a distinction with difference between that England performance and the Scotland one in terms of personnel is like the French tries that came late, be it with the bench impact as well. So the overall fitness of the team has increased, and they were still thereabouts despite all those bludgeoning tackles that they've had to make. They were still capable of,
and they had made those tackles very well against admittedly like an Ireland attack that was not
looking to
sharp and clinical and attacking. But
that's kind of it. Like there's a question of, are they looking to pick holes or are they looking to make them make tackles? And they were exploiting that France were found out for not having a poacher at all, so they're waiting for an Irish error, which when they were in that mood and really like looking to put in a performance, like accuracy is going to be the mantra for that Ireland team. So they were just waiting for them to make an error, which all day they weren't going to. And eventually they did with the disjointed kind of nature of the substitutes. Then they took their foot off the throat, and that's when France showed how dangerous they can be and how quickly they can accumulate points.
They turn line breaks into tries pretty easily. They have a tidy enough line out mould. Their bench up front is great. So there's absolutely no need for the panic and the hysteria that surrounds.
And even the 6 changes.
Well, I'm sort of split on that because like making 6 changes again can't be good for the squad. Giving the guys who started last week another go and rectifying it against Italy and Rome might have been one way to go that you can respect.
6-day turnaround.
But like this is the thing.
5-day turnaround, isn't it?
This is the thing, and they got the 6-day turnaround or the 5-day turnaround, whatever, and then they've got closer. I think this time, like every time they've made changes, they've actually got closer to having something, and they haven't isolated a lot of their problems and solved a good few of them. I thought that the sort of mass exodus of Clermont was a bit overblown and dramatic, and that maybe it was just Para who had to go,
and Van Mahina,
and
Van Mahina gone this week.
That's my point, is that this week Fofana's back. Lopez is benching at 10, covering 10 from the bench, which is a good idea, a good man to have behind Ntamack, an actual option.
This is it, whereas Bellew for the last 2 weeks has only come on as a purely theoretical games already over.
We're seeing from Wales having the more experienced and conservative sort of seeming 10 on the bench can actually have its own sort of impact, getting the experienced man on. Lopez probably isn't as good as Bigger, but he's a good man to bring on if Ntamack is struggling. So they've actually come closer to a balance. They did isolate obviously the huge glaring issues with their breakdown, not being able to stop anything that Ireland were doing from a defensive perspective. But in doing that, they've moved Vittoria to the bench and taken him out of the team. I would first see him back where he belongs, in the second row.
True. That being said, him off the bench against a tiring Italy could be a rampaging monster as well. Like, you don't know. So
no, I think there's a lot of good here. I think there's a lot of good. I think they'll put it together. In fact, in Rome, because I think a lot some of the squad has some confidence issues. I don't like the inclusion of Maynard again over Ramos. And I think with Teddy Thomas back,
it doesn't change that much about what they want to do though. So as far as they're setting the system, maybe not. Huget is just a questionable constant.
He is, and with Teddy Thomas back, you'd think that he can fill whatever Huget does on offense and then some. With some of, but not with the major glaring defensive weaknesses that come into Huget's game.
It's true. There's a lot of them, and it's very hard to ignore how they stack up, despite the fact that he did grab a try.
He was good. I mean, he like when he turns it on, he can play. They're actually in a decent place ahead of this game, and I would back them to put it together. You're going to see some loose enough offense. It's about, if they can control the breakdown, keep Brom Stain and the boys off of their ball, and then put some phases together against Italy. It's going to be a lot more work for Italy even than Ireland was. The Ireland game was curious because their defence obviously hadn't been making tackles, but it was, they knew what Ireland were going to bring was just trying to run over them, and then it was an easier thing to get ready for.
Sure.
Just bridging up and making your tackles.
Whereas with France, there's always a lingering doubt of what they're going to do.
Exactly.
And then couple that with poor tackle technique.
It drains you a little bit mentally and makes you probably a little slower off the mark. And if France are throwing sort of elusive shapes at you and then moving the ball out wide and forcing you to run, you're less likely to be 100% in your contact, and that's where the Italian defenders really do. Struggle.
They do. Well, it's one-on-one. This is what must be making Conor O'Shea's hair tear out. Is just they are more often than not.
Conor O'Shea's hair.
Yeah, it's already gone, long gone. But that's a funny one. I didn't even cop that. But they're shaped up, they're numbered up, and they just miss a tackle before anything before you put teams under enough pressure to pull you out of your shape. You've already just conceded, and that so often is what happens with Italy. And they can, before doing so, they can put together some phases. This Italy team, that's where this positivity that's also vague while there are no results to back it up. But that's where you can kind of see it, is that there are little flashes of, they just look a little bit more like a rugby team than the Italy team's gone by, where at least forwards are getting into some kind of shape. There's a pod there, they're trying to move the ball from here to there.
Like everybody else, learned a lot about offensive rugby and its merits from the last World Cup. From the sort of blistering offensive display that the top four in the Southern Hemisphere laid down on everybody. And that really did change the game, and lesser sides, with the exception of Georgia, who've been plugging away. Even to be fair, including Georgia, and especially immediately after that World Cup, they did as well. I got a lot into that. A lot of sides around the world, really, that was the lightning bolt for how to play this game. And at the same time you had the Connacht thing going on, and it was you can get some guys who are not necessarily as good theoretically as the top guys, and then teach them how to be really quick and just have really good catch pass skills and good instincts for the attacking game, and all of a sudden you're finding tries against slower teams
and wins there. They're often come.
And Italy are on board with that. They attack well these days.
That's not really where their problems lie as often. When they're put under pressure and they can't defend, and especially when they're forcing a game, so they've conceded 14 points already against a bludgeoning offense, and then they feel they have to try and make something, then they start making sloppy errors on offense as well, and then leak ultimately more tries, which is kind of what we saw. If we're going to look back from Italy's point of view, getting an absolute drubbing that was also on the cards in Twickenham, and there's just no way that game was going any other way. Once England picking the team, even before it, when England named that team, you were looking at it going this is a terrible matchup for an Italy side that haven't been making one-on-one tackles against not even that big of men, and then suddenly like Elliot Daly was carrying 2 people through contacts and getting his hands free, and that's Elliot Daly, like the smallest guy England have on that pitch. Meanwhile, Tuilagi just sauntering through. There was just no way of stopping them, and even in that, the 14 points they did score were good. Tommy Adams' try was good, and either side of half time they had attacking sets that came to naught but were good for a time. And it was like there, but for executing perfectly, that could have been their 4 tries had both of those gone their way. I don't think they were ever for winning that game, which was why I was glad to see that they didn't kick 3, although I'm sure it was mooted in terms of a tactic because they were already so far behind by the time they were in a position
if it was 0-0 when they'd gotten those penalties, they would have chipped away and got 3-0.
That's what's wrong. That's what I question. Like I just see like there's always going to be a spell in that game in Twickenham where England are just running over them and through them. So I was like recognising that, although it's a defeatist enough attitude, but it's realistic, and as it stands they're going into a home game against France that they're looking to target because of where France have been for the last few years. They're probably, Conor O'Shea knows in his heart of hearts he's probably not going to face that animal because France have been wounded already and they're going to be looking to do something positive before the tournament ends. So they need to be trying to still target this game at home and try and get some points from it, because failing that, even with a losing bonus point, they're worse than last year as far as table points accrued, and that's got to be partly down to just not going for bonus point. Try bonus points every time from minute 1, kickoff number 1 in week 1. That's all Italy should be looking to do in this tournament if they're looking to progress, be it with that, like you're saying, embracing and attacking rugby and finding tries against better teams by being quick. They also do need to just work on attack.
There are fundamentals of the game that are just missing there, and long term it's hard to see. Like don't get me wrong, O'Shea's doing all the right things, but it's picking from a much smaller base than actually. It's one of the things that I probably do question about the Conor O'Shea approach is just in terms of long-term competitiveness. They're actually like they have their little base of rugby, tight-knit rugby communities, but it's a very small little place to be picking from. And probably the attack should be about maybe expanding the game more, and maybe there should be more efforts put into that sort of getting non-rugby communities into rugby at a grassroots level. I don't know how much of that is going on, but it seems like the emphasis, at least on a selection level for the likes of Treviso and Italy in general, is all coming from a pretty small area.
Seemingly so.
So it's just going to be hard to find the athletes to compete.
Unless you're going poaching from footballers who couldn't be footballers and try and convert them and all, but then that's limited in approach as well.
It is.
Those kinds of experiments have been conducted by all kinds of teams. This is why they're just so far behind in that developmental process. That it's like
they don't even know where they are or what they are as a test team. And like O'Shea's trying to give them a bit of that, but I'm thinking it's probably going to be limited in terms of its ability to succeed. Like comparable to, and not as bad as, but comparable to Bernard Jackman and Dragons. That it's just you're probably doing all the right and honourable things, but there's just no way you can compete on your face with Leinster, and that's
a sad reality about it. And this game hopefully could be different if they make their tackles like they did against Ireland and Wales for the great periods and attack with a little bit more
kick the ball a bit as well.
This is also true. Like against Wales, that was what they were sorely lacking,
and it has worked every week against France.
Like
when it was executed by basically everyone kicking into that backfield. They got Mader and Huget back there again. Just a little bit of class and a little bit of subtlety, not doing it. Not doing it when you're made to do it, but also not doing it predictably off first phase. Doing it off first or second phase.
Well, this is the danger of it, is like trying it early on in the game, being a bit sloppy, concede a soft kick return try, panic.
I mean, you can see when you're Italy, you can say that about it. If the game plan is to keep it in hand, it's like, oh, that's risky because what if we just drop it or throw an intercept?
I know. It's coach killing errors that are always the undoing.
Well, that's the thing. I know we had a rough week last week, but I think you back the boots of Tito and maybe Jaden Hayward if you're Italy. No bombs, none of that stupidity. Finding grass, finding touch, making England reset and do set pieces and exit and go through all those formalities rather than being in an attacking mindset. Making France do all of that.
That would have in theory been what they were trying to do last week as well.
You can copy paste it. They have a limited set of winning conditions.
Yeah, and a lot of them do rely on the look of lack of intensity showing
they
from
can
their
attack that
opposition.
French line out. Brown Stain's a good poacher of
Brown Stain is a good poacher of a line out. He gets up high into. He looks a little bit like a Peter O'Mahony in terms of the workload he gets through for that team sometimes as well. He's a bit of a workhorse.
Yeah.
And very physical. So they do have positives. They're more up for the physicality of it, and they're just in shape and in execution. They look a bit more like a rugby team than ever before. But the problem is they're just nowhere near as good a rugby team as any of the other rugby teams in this tournament.
And to my mind, it's a territory game for them this week. It's you get into the territory, and then once you're there, you don't let up. They're pegged back in their 22. You make them exit. You go back again. You maybe try if you're in just in their half. If the picture presents itself, you peg them back again, or you use some of those attacking chops to maybe create something, and it's all about scoring tries once you're down there, but having the game take place in the French half, that's gotta be key. And
probably try and just slow it up. A little stop start would probably suit Italy a bit more than it would France, although
maybe probably because Italy are more likely to make errors.
Exactly, and France,
chaos ball is a
with these halfbacks are going to be vying for the chaos ball,
and they're going to be quick
matchups, and just even because off turnovers, you don't necessarily need to work hard to fashion an overlap against Italy. Just put your big men in space quickly and have them run over one or two guys, and then you're away, get your hands free. France, I think, will be looking to play a very pacey game in probably dry conditions over in Rome, I suspect.
Whereas Italy do want to make it a scrappy affair,
a little bit.
Lots of
more Treviso kind of
exactly.
A home game against Treviso, and how annoying that can be for the teams that come there, especially if they're stuttering.
And that's the big difference with Italy these days and Treviso, is that let up that you're hoping for when they are competitive in games doesn't
seem to come as
so
much.
that it's sort of like oh there's a noise. That's when you're 60 minutes in and you're expecting maybe a bit of tackles, them to start falling off tackles. Maybe they don't, and that's certainly been a picture for Treviso. Italy, keeping it tight, keeping it scrappy, but you got to be and being patient, because their attack as good, like as somewhat good as it has been, is France's defence against Ireland and even against Scotland. Like, we were critical of Scotland's offence, but France just didn't give them anything. So they don't miss tackles, they don't leave big holes. Italy are going to have to be patient, I think, and kick the ball, find grass. That's the weakness for France. Could be if Italy have their way, could be a few 3-pointers for wrestling. This is it. Like, do they go for the tries in that scenario then against this French team? How much do they back themselves to get them?
That's the problem. They don't have any confidence. They don't have any evidence for either of it working. So you say kick 3, but I know in my heart of hearts that when we do that, they score 14. Or we say go to the line and go for hearts that when we do that, we knock it on or throw it straight. So it's probably a very disheartening little kind of quandary to be at, but I think the more optimistic one, when you're at home the final day, is go to the corner, try at least to score a try and win.
And that's a point as well, is that they need to be galvanised and they need to be in it, and that's tries are the way to get there.
The whole team can understand and get on board.
We spoke earlier in the tournament, like France, I think, have turned a corner in the sense that Scottish performance was very positive for them in a lot of ways, and we didn't learn too much about them from them getting bullied by Ireland. They're not at Ireland's level,
which we knew anyway.
But then so that brittle confidence that we were speaking about earlier in the tournament could rear its ugly head if Italy create that picture for them where it's tight and they're ahead with a couple of tries early doors, and France don't get to be their free-flowing selves.
That's the idea.
It's France, just no fear. If I'm France, just this is Italy, jouet. Let's go. Let's go and play some rugby and score a load of tries, get some highlights, and go into the World Cup warm-ups with a bit, and then the World Cup with a bit of pump. It's I'm predicting France to do something similar to that, to actually put up a score.
What I think as well. So best of luck, Italy. Same as we said last week. We're hoping you do well, but we're also thinking France are probably going to roll into town and take that one.
Or at least produce enough positives to get a decent scoreline going.
And
maybe not all perfect for them.
No, it may not be plain sailing, but I think a comfortable enough win in the end, and a bit of a head scratcher, and the same post-match interview from Conor O'Shea again. Disappointing.
Maybe wear a funny hat next time to keep it fresh.
Could do. A little Italy hat.
It's a tough gig. I don't envy him.
No, I don't. Yeah.
Listen, we'll move on. We'll talk about the big one as it is. The game that had us shoot this podcast today.
Yeah. Had me don me kit in honour of the occasion. It's the final weekend.
Grand Slam decider in Cardiff. Wales don't lose these. They don't, generally speaking.
They don't tend to. No. Yeah, it's every time it's in the lead up, and Wales even are away and shooting for a Grand Slam. I just can't recall them ever not doing it.
I believe I looked it up. I wish I had the figure to hand, but I don't. I haven't essentially when they've been going for Grand Slams.
Yeah,
and even that game against England that wasn't for a Grand Slam on the last day, where England were going for a Grand Slam and Wales were going for the championship, and they beat them 30 points to 3.
Yeah,
similar kind of buzz.
Yeah,
could be a similar kind of Wales we see. I mean, they're going to be hungry. England were quite confident going into that game, as I recall, but actually it was a brittle enough confidence in the sense that they'd actually not been that good in the championship, which is a comparable place to where Ireland are now.
Indeed,
coming off that French win, going we're back on track, and then Wales are going, we need to win, and that could be the picture.
This could be the picture if we want it more, and like in the context of going for the win and such a Grand Slam, such a great historic thing, versus Ireland just kind of fishing for a bit of form. It's not as emboldened or brave, and they are going away from home, and the roof is likely going to be closed.
It is closed. We've decided
is that what
now.
that is?
I believe that was a Welsh decision.
That's the right decision.
Fair enough. Sexton has good memories with a closed roof there.
They're all class rugby players, so it shouldn't be a problem for either of them. And
it's the atmosphere.
And the atmosphere is the thing, and that's like the final day of the Six Nations. That's what it's all about. I want to hear that anthem being sung. It's being sung to the roof closed, and the absolute noise in it. It's going to be a phenomenal occasion. Great way to sign off the championship, although it's not actually quite the end. We had the Calcutta Cup after, but it's going to be signed, sealed and delivered, be it for England or for Wales. Likely, like Ireland's still holding out hope, and it would be a very strange thing to have happen that if Ireland win this game and then have Scotland win the other game and gift Ireland the championship.
Strange feeling for Ireland winning the championship for England.
Winning the championship and being the third best team in that scenario. Or, this little kind of, to quote Warren Gatton, like kissing your sister, to beat Wales in Cardiff, and then give the championship to England, is a little unpleasant choice. That
kissing your sister is all negative, though. It's a very strange expression.
It is still, yes, but I still find it hilarious that he said it in the context of that. But I actually, Wales, it stacks up similarly to all these Ireland-Wales games. It's going to be very tight.
The key is defence for Wales.
That's it. Like tight is in more ways than one. Scoreboard tightness, but also I think exchanges. Ireland, just especially given the team they've named with Sean O'Brien back in there, he's had many a war in the fringes with this Welsh team, and similar Alan Wynne-Jones will be familiar as well. Him and CJ Stander with Peter O'Mahony. That's like a very bludgeoning kind of back three to be taken in.
We know what Ireland are going to do. We know that it's failed against Wales in the past. We know that it can be successful because they're brilliant players and they're super strong. And Wales, in terms of their tight five, they're good, but they're not as dynamic and physical as those Irish boys. They aren't, with the exception of Alan Wynne and Tipuric. There's a lot of, they're good. Like they could be physically deficient against this Irish pack, but they're very, very good defensively from 1 to 15.
This is it. Their technique and their system can just nullify that advantage. Which you think you are right in saying, and I think most Welsh fans would agree in saying that. Ireland are generally quite big and very their forwards are, as well as being mobile, quite nifty as well on their feet. Good for offloads, good at adjusting their feet. But Wales are great on off the ball, though, is just getting low, which cuts all that out down to size. Getting low
and stop,
and then chop and stop, but also chop and slow. And Ireland, every system struggles when you're adding seconds to their ruck by being a nuisance. But Ireland's especially is, even though it's quite slow as far as a tempo is concerned, it's deliberate as far as that rhythm. And Wales are excellent at distorting and stopping that, and Ireland are very much designed on their shapes and their pods kind of sweeping in a very steady rhythm and flow. So even if you stutter that a second and the ball carriers with their pods,
the ruck is exactly as long as you want it to be for your backline to get into this deceptive picture. And if it's a little longer and everyone's flat-footed for a moment,
then
Johnny's getting frustrated. And,
that's the picture that has been painted many times before, and in Cardiff more often than most. And that could come to pass. Alternatively, Ireland can and have in this fixture before tactically kind of done some clever things that have caught Wales out, be that some clever little offloads around the tight just to move that point of contact so that their disruptive work isn't being done. Kicks have worked well, but not bombs usually against Wales.
No, grass finders.
It's grass finders that can pay some dividends because their wingers do play high and they're back and high enough. They tend to drift up, to be honest, more so than they play high. They just have a habit of kind of ball watching and creeping up.
Totally.
And the space
it's a lot to as good as he is, it's a lot to ask at Liam Williams, who is, as he self-ascribed himself, he describes himself the bomb diffuser,
and to be fair, he's very good at it.
Very good at that. So wooden box kicks would be an ill-advised.
It would be a stupid play.
Yes,
is what it
and
is.
so would bombs.
Yeah, and that was what it was encouraging. Just to go back to last week from Ireland's point of view, the French performance was great as far as varying that in terms of exiting. They were moving the point of attack. We've been saying all tournament and seeing all tournament that Conor Murray's a little bit off form as far as accuracy and speed of pass and of kick, and so his box kicks, as well as being telegraphed, have actually not been quite as on the money. So going back, resorting to that tactic exclusively is silly. Disposing of it entirely is silly as well. I'm sure they'll bring out one or two to mix it up if you're playing well. But I think ideally, for exits, certainly. I think a few offensive ones they like to do as well off the 22.
I think they'll have Johnny do it if they are doing it.
Might do. But for exits, you have Ringrose, who has a great boot, which means sweeping passes from left to right can end up with him, and he can clear it.
That's what we're asking for.
And then Stockdale has a great left boot, so sweeping exit moves rather than right to left can end in his hands, and he can use the left.
And he's got that advantage where he causes a bit of fear as well. So the chances are, if you try and exit at that left side and you get the ball as far as Stockdale and there's a bit of space, that if he's got a man here and a man there and a whole backfield in behind, Liam Williams is probably going to be prevented from rushing back to cover that backfield because he'd be a little wary of that
Stockdale beating the man
or chipping it ahead into that short space that's in front of him.
So then that leaves it open for just different kind of pictures
and reading what Liam Williams is doing,
which Stockdale does seem to have license to do. So it's about moving that point of contact and not being afraid to do so. Where Ireland get
in their own half is key. That's because everything tightens up when you get nearer the line. Like once we know in the 22 it's going to become that bludgeony war, but there is license to move Wales around a little bit to expose maybe that outside shoulder of Jay Davis and the link up that goes on there
between 10 metre lines. That's definitely there. That's definitely a weakness
between 10 metre lines. They have the whole Ireland mantra of attack. No, I would use the whole pitch.
No, I mean between 10 metre lines as in in the middle of the pitch. I thought you were talking about the 10 metre line to 10 metre line in the complex and halfway line. In that area in the pitch, like you're saying, there's room, and very often Jonathan Davis can be found a little bit of a disconnect.
Very good
because of those wingers, that winger tendency as well. He has to do a lot from that channel.
He's very good at shutting down what goes on his inside, but when you actually get into his outside shoulder, you see some weaknesses sometimes, both in his tackling and in terms of just they're actually a little bit exposed if you can get outside and if you can flood those channels with a bit of something, like France did in the opening half of the opening test.
Exactly.
There's profit to be had there for sure. And
it just takes courage getting there. It takes courage and accuracy to get there, and sometimes without confidence this Ireland team just revert inside, even when the idea is safety in contact or safety in recycling, but that's just profoundly untrue, because particularly against Wales there is no safety in contact. Even if you win the contact, it's not a safe area. You need support players there, and you need them there bridging over. You also need the ball gone quickly, because even a man there is no guarantee that the ruck's going to be clean. So that needs to be appreciated throughout the whole course of the game, and the point of attack needs to be moved. Likewise, Sexton similarly needs to be protected, which the moving of the point of the contact has the knock-on effect of keeping Sexton a bit safer, because he's not as onto the line. They
did that very well last week. Because that's something that France looked to do and actually didn't really get a chance to do, apart from one incident in the second half, which was just outrageous. They just shot him into the backfield. He threw the ball away and just barged into him anyway, just like, I want to hit you, Johnny. But for the most part, France were the pioneers of the hit Johnny and make sure every time he touches the ball he hits the dirt approach. And they didn't lay a glove on him because Ireland did vary it. The presence of Gary Ringrose, massive for Ireland.
And even with those one or two errors, I saw I can't remember who it was who was suggesting that Gary Ringrose's form was in question, or that his selection was in question. But I'm like, we on this podcast are on the opposite opinion. It's like every time Ringrose is out and you're left with one of Farrell, Aki or Henshaw or two of them,
Two.
two of those three to fill those centre halves. What you're left with is just
Yeah.
such a lack of subtlety. And sure, they're all big physical
lack of
units.
distribution. It's
Yeah.
another. It's not even subtlety. It's another distributor.
Yeah.
Because you don't have one at fullback. We've decided that
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to be Carberry ever. It's going to be Larmer or Carney or maybe Conway
Mm-hmm.
or hopefully not ever Henshaw again.
Addison. Is also in
Addison
that
could be
conversation.
Addison could be a distributor, but we haven't seen any of him.
No.
And it's probably going to be too late for
Haley
him.
is also in the mix
No, he's
somewhere
not.
in the
Not
background.
in the World Cup mix.
Yeah, no.
So from Ireland's perspective, it's getting a second distributor in there to help Johnny, and the only option that they have is it's a
Ringrose.
singular. It's Ringrose, and
Yeah.
he's massive and he's very classy as well when
Yeah,
he plays.
he really is. He really is. That's why you can't even like one or two drops or like a knock grounding of the ball, albeit that was a beautiful take.
It was a fantastic play. He put himself there to score it, but
raging. But he's all class all day. So yeah, he is vital for Ireland in getting to those out in feeding those outside channels and taking the emphasis off the Murray Sexton axis and the Murray Sexton show, just putting that little bit of doubt in Wales's defence as to where to pack their pods for this disruptive play that they're going to be looking to do.
With ball in hand, it should be trying to emulate France. It should be flooding those wide channels. I think the approach they will go with will be more 2014 style, if you remember that game. That was in Dublin. It's really harking back, but it was the first year that Joe Schmidt was in Ireland when we won the Six Nations.
Is that the one where we reputedly kicked the leather off the ball?
Yes, that was Gatland's comment on it. Absolutely stuffed them with a great line-out maul.
Yeah.
And ended up, this was the great Welsh team who were coming off back-to-back championships and had however many players in that Lions team that won in Australia. They were flying high.
Yeah.
And Ireland did them. They were first team to do them that year. And it was with ruthless kicking and then a really great line-out drive that Wales couldn't deal with.
Yeah.
Wales's defensive maul has been good, but Ireland's maul last week was pretty tasty as well.
And some of the variations on it.
Wales very much pack an angle, so if Ireland can peel off successfully, that could be an area of profit for them.
Sure. Yeah. Has been before.
Just needs to be reffed so that the guys who are coming in at the angle can't just swim up the side.
I don't know who the ref is actually.
Neither do I.
Didn't look that up. That is always pertinent information, which is annoying because, in our idealised version of what we like to look in rugby, the ref doesn't matter, but it very does.
Speaking relatively historically, virtually every time in recent times, in the era of Sexton, I guess you could say, that Ireland have beaten Wales, it's been a big, convincing win. They actually really genuinely got the better of them up front. That's been the pattern, and it has happened.
Yeah.
But every time that the games are tight,
Wales get the winning
play, and that's like they did it against
last year's one wasn't.
No, and I was going to say last year was sort of an exception to
Yeah.
that, but actually if you watch that game back, Ireland did dominate that game, and up front were probably 20-point victory to the good, but Wales were in that very Scarlet's flowy state, and Ireland's defence was a little loose, and basically Ireland were dominating and then
finally scoring.
And then Wales were responding with an insta try, and then it was back to more Irish dominance. And it was more of a lesson in Ireland's, both some Wales's classy attack and Ireland's maybe not being clinical enough, and maybe not doing what they did to France last week, which is just keeping them down there.
That's true. Well, this is the difference as well. It's such an interesting question that Ireland ask of you, and Georgia in tier 2 as well, where it's like, what is the benefit? Is there more benefit to 7 points instantly scored and then you get a chance to go again once your exit's right and you're back 7 points to the good? Or is there more to be said for 10 minutes of dominance of smashing 20 tackles set, turnover, exit, 25 tackles set, turnover, exit, 30 tackles set, turnover, exit, 20 tackles set and try, and it's like that's 10 minutes of game time plus a whole load of offense that you've registered, and it's like that just pays. It's like miles in the legs, miles in the clock.
Those are the two teams, Georgia and Ireland, that model themselves that way. And actually the Ireland-France game almost had a picture in that first half of like a Rugby Europe Championship game. It was like reminded me of the Georgia-Spain game that I watched a few weeks back when it was just the game was just being spent entirely in the French 22. Ireland were moving at their own pace. They weren't being clinical enough in the sense that they weren't actually finding the line. They were making some errors, but it didn't matter. Like France had turned over the ball and realised that it was just like a 2-minute break before they had to go back to defending because they couldn't do anything. And it was that same sort of negative, depressing picture of just more tackles and more tackles being broken, and then eventually that try, and then sort of an very good exit from Ireland, showing their class, and then straight back there and straight back to slowing it down and putting more pressure on you.
Yeah.
It's colourful. I mean, from an Irish fan's perspective, there are concerns in the sense that we know what can go wrong.
Yeah.
We may see some of it this weekend.
Yeah.
And Georgie would say the same, but in terms of from a global rugby picture, it's
nice
kind of cool to have one of the elite teams in rugby being very different in that regard.
Compared to the All, not everyone's going to be the All Blacks, and no one's going to be as good at as the All Blacks at what they do. But it's a very different way of playing the game, and it's like there's drawbacks and benefits. It's a great way to be a front runner in a game.
It's a good way to play the All Blacks.
It is a good way. That's true too. Stylistically, the All Blacks don't like it.
Well, they don't like not having the ball for really long periods of time.
Exactly, and that's similar to France last week. You see a team that just loves to play the catch-pass game, not get to do that and have to make tackle after tackle, and then suddenly when they do get their chance, they're a little sloppy. See, like last week with France, Dupont a few times making the wrong option, ball in hand, which is unlike him. Similarly, in the All Blacks game, Kieran Reid, after getting a stinger from one of those awkward tackles, then suddenly he can't catch a ball, which was a clean through for a try. And it's like these are all the knock-on effects that are put in through that labour. Wales, however, just have such a strike rate as well as an identity that's based on their defence. That just kind of makes this a really bad matchup for that Ireland team.
It is,
because Wales are going to be prepared to tackle them all day, turn over and score from said turnover. And then, as we've seen against this Ireland team, if you go ahead, and particularly if you go 2 scores ahead, you are in such a great position that suddenly all of that plan is moot and bad, and Ireland are now, despite having players who are like world class, this formula for this team and how they play is so bad for getting themselves back into that kind of game.
It's a curious one as well. Like, I suspect plan A for Ireland, like their first port of call, as I said, like that 2014 style, is actually just taking them on in that area and winning up front. And that's the straightforward, easy thing. Like, you win your collisions, you get a couple of offloads in the tight, which will be important for them. You get dominance of the scrum. You saw a bit more last week. We were calling for it, and we did see it attacking that French scrum. And then you saw a very good line-out maul. And you'll see Ireland try to employ all of those and really squeeze Wales up front in the tight. Have Wales's defence not be able to deal with the tackles. That's going to be plan A. And then, your plan B is that other stuff that we were talking about, maybe flooding the wide channels, moving the ball a bit more, getting outside them.
They're more kind of tactics.
Exactly. But that's kind of my point, is that the plan, it's not less of a plan B. It's those are the kind of pictures that you'd probably only see from Ireland if they were winning the contest anyway.
This is
and that's kind of that's the curious part of it, is that, like, you feel like if Ireland aren't winning those contacts, they're not going to be able to go there. And that's probably what they might need to do. Like, my suspicion is that Ireland will go for that physical jugular, will go to try and dominate the scrum, dominate the line out drive, dominate those collisions, and they might not be able to do it.
Well, they'll probably have moments of doing just that, but then also other moments of Wales getting the better of them in those things, and that's where I think tight is another word you can breathe, the same word brought back again to describe that. Is just Wales are going to make it frustrate Ireland. They know how Ireland want to play, and they're going to be coy in the way they play them. Even they are going to front up there, but they're going to be slightly awkward. And
listen, like, if Ireland want to go through 40 phases, like, there's one picture, like, Wales, it massively increases the likelihood of a turnover. And then the other thing that's going to be important is discipline. You might get the picture of Wales giving away penalties in that department, which will give Ireland either the chance to build a score or to go to the jugular if they fancy
their line out maul, like you're saying.
So that'll be that's an interesting picture for Irish success. But as it is, if the game stays tight, if it becomes a chippy 3-pointer kind of game, or it's in its 12-9 regions, or 13-10 regions, when it gets to crunch time, you would back probably Wales on the day with more to play for and a bit more hustle about them.
This is we're talking about Ireland trying to find that gap outside the 13 channel. Like, Wales are going to flood that anyway, because like, off turnover ball, they're going to be looking to get there. They have some game breakers in those channels. They know how to handle themselves in the tram lines as far as fix and give or step and go, and they just can execute all kinds of tries from all kinds. They have in their playmakers in the back line who don't mind kicking, don't mind running it. They have basic shapes that keep them together and linked, but basically they're ready to go from anywhere in any kind of way. So it's very dangerous. They can up the tempo at any point, or slow it right down. So, like, their versatility is going to be very handy in trying to soak what Ireland have and then strike when Ireland don't.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's very often that can be the undoing of this Ireland team, is when a clinical Wales do strike at the right time. And
And the tries are always different. They're always cool little pictures. Very often wingers tries, as you see, scored against Ireland. And you'll likely see maybe they'll go to that crossfield kick again to Josh Adams. They'll like that match up in the air against Keith Earls.
Yeah, every team that plays Ireland does. So the matchup tends to be a vertically challenged one.
They did struggle against Scotland. They have only scored 9 tries in the tournament so far. Yeah. But my suspicion, they're not they haven't. You could look at it one way and say, English teams gone by that have gone for Grand Slams and it's been beyond them, have kind of rode their luck on their way there and then got found out in the last day. But to be honest with you, I think this Wales team are a little better than that.
Yeah,
I don't think they've shown their full
Italy,
hand yet.
The argument for that is the Italy performance they put in, but the changes they made to that team and the way they played the game as well was what contributed to that being more like that performance than the one that Ireland.
They were nervy in the second half against Scotland.
They were
with their full team,
genuinely, but they were away from home.
Yeah, and that's
there was
the
a
point.
bananas game. Yeah.
I think at home going for a Grand Slam, Wales becomes a difficult machine to stop. And I went against Ireland last week. I went for a risky France call, picturing a different game.
Yeah.
But Ireland were wise to it and played the game beautifully and saw off what could have been. You look back at it and think France are just awful. It's not really the full picture. It could have been a tricksy one if France were played into the game, but Ireland played them straight out of it. Yeah. And maybe you'll see that with Wales, but my suspicion is Wales.
They're two teams that know each other very, very well, and it's one of the best rivalries in the whole tournament, but also in rugby as a whole. So it's just going to be amazing. And like you're saying, I can see both of those pictures very clearly because I've seen them. I've seen this game so often over the last few years, and yes, we know what happens when it goes well. We know what happens when it very doesn't. We know it more often than not doesn't go that well again in Cardiff. Ireland have a reputation for spoiling the party. Wales have a reputation for going the whole way when they get in a flow and not being derailed. So ultimately, I don't know. You're similar to you. I'm probably leaning towards giving it towards Wales, just certainly as favourites. My bookies hat is going for Wales. I'm going for Ireland though.
Yeah,
I'm looking for Ireland to win it for us.
That's bad news for Wales because his track record versus my track record in terms of calling performances doesn't stack up well for me. So Jeez, the daffodils, you'd be worried a little bit.
Well, the daffodils have actually been dwindling around here, but that's mainly the weather. But it's going to be a class game. It's going to be the game of the tournament. Well, so game of the weekend anyway, for certain. Could that be the game of the tournament? I'm hoping so.
Yeah. Before we move on, shout out to Cian Healy and the discrimination that is going on in the game against prop forwards. Cian Healy was unreal. Broke the back of the French.
And was man of the match.
Was man of the match.
Was l'homme de match.
He was very important to what Ireland did. Breaking the back of the French scrum was key. Getting their props bouncing backwards, himself and Ty Furlong. But he was making more players. He was getting the go for it. He was clearly man of the match. Yeah. But he's a prop. He only plays 50 minutes. So they can't give it to him. It's a conspiracy. They don't give them World Player of the Years. They don't give them man of the matches. And it's wrong. Very important players.
Propgate. We're alluding to it.
Cian Healy was clearly man of the match last weekend. They wouldn't award it to him because he's a prop. That's just gross.
Well, now you're in danger of lobbying on behalf of the church, that's a bit of a risky thing to be doing. That is an aside, but I'm inclined to agree.
Very important.
Yeah, but in the meantime, come on Ireland,
Ireland,
Six Nations, let's have you.
Absolutely.
But before that can happen, we need Scotland to win. Well, after that, we need Scotland to go to Twickenham and win, because that's the next game. We need Scotland to go to England and win.
Yeah, it's curious.
Which even as before I can get through that sentence, I just know that doesn't
I also
happen.
I think they're very much a confidence team.
They are.
That was very what they did against England last year in Murrayfield. That got them to hold the tournament was very evidence based for them. Yeah, they had it was a lot of wins and buildings in the making, that performance, and they peaked almost on that day, and it was brilliant for them. They got the Calcutta Cup, but this is a very different ask for them to show up and just be awesome. And it's also a very curious.
It's a different Scotland that are coming to the party to face them. It's
Stewie Hogg.
It's a team that's completely lost the identity they had with success. They're trying to adopt some of Edinburgh's success in their identity as their own.
I think they're succeeding.
They're succeeding in some of that, but
in the sense that
what they found in terms of their attack is really nothing other than a disjointed mess, which Finn's pulling the strings but not looking
their whole
in sync with any of it.
Attack isn't even the word. It's backline is the word in attack and in defence. That's where they're not fronting up. Actually, up front, I think you can talk. I think you could say every week. There's been some critique of the Scottish pack, but it's way off. Every week they fronted up. They fronted up against Wales and conceded some sloppy, in particular that Jay Davis try. I know it came after many phases, but out the back is where they were soft. And the Edinburgh pack now is starting the game almost in full, with the exception of Sam Skinner. Hamish Watson's back. That back has been like it matched Ireland, it matched Wales, it beat up Italy. And it matched the French in that game, but they just couldn't get anything going on offence. And I suspect you might see a similar enough picture. I think England maybe they'll break them up, but I think they'll struggle to break them
they'll
up.
They'll look to bludgeon them there anyway, and maybe with a few offloads they may find some inroads anyway. But I think they'll find Hamish Watson's in their way. I actually think that's a losing picture for them, because I think Hamish Watson, as well as being a barnstormer and making headlines for carries, is an actual poachman. He is, he's a ball hound. Really he is a jackal.
That's not the picture for England. It's Manu Tuilagi is the man.
It's not, but very often England, it's their default setting. So it's like against the Scots at home, we go and run them over.
Kicking the ball and moving it to the middle of the park. That's been the key for them this year.
And even when they've cut Scotland to ribbons, it's been in the centres as well, and like those centres did like off the back of the Italy shellacking that was always on the cards as well. Like they'll be in good pomp, they'll be back in Twickenham for another tri-fest and going into World Cup with confidence. And if the Irish can do them a favour, they'll be thinking hopefully the tournament as well, and all chariots rolling into town and all that. That's got to be the English picture. Like you're just and I think you are right in saying they would get more purchase out of this Scotland team by moving it there sooner rather than trying to bludgeon them first, because Scotland are going to be pretty harry and combative. Well,
that's a potential losing picture for them, in the sense that if Scotland do match them up front, which I think is more likely than them stopping them through the middle through the centres, if they do match them up front, if they do get a few jackals, all of a sudden they play themselves into the game. They feel a bit more confident. They get a penalty. Maybe they can get up the pitch and get their hands on the ball.
Maybe Finn makes a play. Maybe it's a 7-point play.
And that's the key. So to not play them into the game would be to target them where they're weakest, which isn't, curiously enough, for this team up front. Only
that's true.
3 Glasgow players in the whole team. It's the smallest ever, I think, under Gregor Townsend.
That's crazy, But then it's warranted based off some form, and then injuries
are key as well.
Injuries have been key this whole tournament. It's been the only talking point for them all.
Sean Maitland covering the backfield is another thing.
Crazy.
Crazy. But who else? Who's played 15 who you could pick there outside of Kinghorn and Hogg, who are injured?
Rory Jackson.
No, there's a terrible
Bring him to Twickenham.
I thought they were actually going to go with Adam Hastings, after
that's
last week.
Not a terrible call at all, is put Adam Hastings in there so that Finn has someone who's crazy and Glaswegian to bounce off.
Worked last week. Finn needed a bit of friendly hands, a bit of baller hands to pass to last week.
And Maitland has been showing some poor hands instead, let alone a distribution game that he's now going to be thrust upon him, which has never been part of his job. They surely
won't make him do that. Well, I guess Sam Johnson. It'll be Grigg
on distribution.
Yeah.
To be honest, I don't see a good picture for Scotland. This whole tournament has been
pretty disastrous for them. It's a terrible time to get all those injuries. They don't have much luck, but they don't have much depth either, and much confidence. And
well, that's what's been sapped throughout this whole. Like even going into this tournament, even with the injuries, it was more
the South Africa
optimistic
defeat in November was
there was a bit of
a sore one as well,
taken right out of the sails at home.
Murrayfield.
The Murrayfield factor now not really a factor because they've lost twice there this year.
And to South Africa last year.
So it's disappointing trend for Scottish rugby. Actually, it's just been honest, and this would be like if they can rally and put in a one-day performance similar to what they displayed last year against England, but it's not in Murrayfield, and it's not that same team.
They were very flowy and very confidence based, and that's the kind of guy Finn is. Like when Finn joined Racing, when Finn joins a new team, actually you see some disjointed pictures the first few weeks, and guys can be critical of him. And you've seen that with Racing, but when he after a few months
to him, adjusting to how he shapes the throw ball,
exactly. Then you start to see the magic happen, and that's what you're starting to see with Racing. But he's never settled into this Scotland team. He's running this team, and he doesn't seem to know how it works, and they don't seem to know how he works. And it's in attack. There's just he's their brightest spark because he's the best player in it. But he can't link up with anyone and put anyone in any kind of space. I'd like to see Darcy Graham get in off his wing and give Finn something to work
Darcy
with.
Graham has looked positive, and even the other day when he came in, he looked positive, and he has been their form winger really all season. And compared to even Seymour as well, who had been shown.
I don't dislike Seymour in there either because he's a smart guy.
No, he is. I rate him as an experienced head, but it's like the form guy has been Darcy Graham, and he hasn't been injured and they haven't been throwing him, so that's just a questionable call, I would say. But now he is in. Hopefully you can see him get his hands on the ball, but like last week's performance wasn't really all that encouraging for them. Like,
no, and the suspicion would be that they just they're not going to be able to front up defensively against the English attack, and that's going to be all she wrote.
Hopefully Hamish Watson makes somewhat of a difference too.
He'll make a huge difference. That's the point. That's the picture. Their best. They're like with Edinburgh. Their best and most optimistic points are up front, and that's the picture for them is to see Hamish Watson attacking them. Actually, Josh Strauss off the bench is a good option. And I don't hate the call to drop him either. He's been good. But
he's been gassing. Is one thing that he puts in a lot of work, and then he's not as effective in the second half, and he's going down then a bit more often, feeling the heat of the Test arena, which he
is just about back, I think, from injury as well.
He's also he's got a game that's very physical. When he's at his best, he is being a bit barnstorming and physical, but there's a limit to how long you can get that. So maybe off the bench is a better option.
And Magnus Bradbury's been great.
He's
Gary Graham, a very good head to have in there, and it's just it's is it Gary Graham? It might not be Gary Graham actually. I think
it's Hamish Watson and
Sam Skinner.
Sorry,
Sam Skinner, Exeter man.
That's right.
And another great player. And great to see Ben Toulis back in there, the band back together from an Edinburgh perspective. So all physical up front. I actually don't think they'll go backwards. Well, maybe they'll go bawards in this one. That's the point, is that England are elite. It's a good test for their pack.
And England are big even by elite standards as well. In the top 8, England are a big side physically. So that's another challenge. It'll challenge some of their technique in that physical exchange.
And certainly, if Scotland do start to lose those battles, it'll be a very long day for them.
Exactly.
But I suspect they will actually step up and make some plays of their own.
I think it could be tight enough and nip and tuck for the first half or the first half of the first half. But I think England will, there'll be a Johnny May try in there where there won't be a Darcy Graham try that you'd like.
No. I wanted a Darcy Graham try.
Maybe there will be. I wouldn't mind. It might come at 80 minutes.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Like
when England are singing their chariots, Scotland will break through and show some of their class.
Recurring trend of hubristic fans chanting champion songs after full time, being punished by an immediate score the other way. It's nice to see.
It's possible. It's conceivable that Scotland will be that England might be a little flat if Wales do get the win against Ireland as well.
That's conceivable, all right. That's because they will be in their head of winning it. Like if Ireland are to do it over in Cardiff, that's probably bad news for Scotland. Although, Ireland, we'll be looking so hopefully across at Scotland, thinking they can do it for us. We're so up for it, and that'll be where we get to join in Scots' pain as England run in all the tries. Whereas, it wouldn't wouldn't put it past them if Wales have already put it away. That similar to what we saw last year, where they were so out of it that they ended up contriving to lose so many. England, this is contriving to lose so many games that they ended up sitting in 5th by the end, by nearly just absent-mindedly giving up on the tournament and giving up on trying to solve some of their issues before the tournament was out. It seemed by the end it was just picking the same team to go out and go through the slump.
What do you think of Joe Cockanasiggan not getting a go this week?
I question it, to be honest.
Jack Nolan there instead. The Scotland game.
There's definitely been some rotation like that. It's different tools for different jobs. They definitely saw Italy and thought big men. And he is only, what is he, 21? I think he's 21. So he's obviously in the plans. He's probably a bit of a bolter for the World Cup. Noel is one who's probably on the plane as well.
I would say so.
There's.
He really likes Noel because he uses him
as
his 9th forward, as he says.
That's it. He's a kind of a coach's dream from out there. He's similar to what I think he has all the attributes that Joe Schmidt likes in a Fergus McFadden, or certainly used to like in a Fergus McFadden, now does like in Earls as well. Similar kind of industrious, combative little terrier of a winger who's
and with probably a bit more strength and
a little bit more toughness at least. Strength is. And neither one thing the other, even power. It's like their technique is on point and they're just kind of fearless and just go in there and harry and harass and that's always a positive picture.
Against Scotland, I would have thought that the big man might have been the way to go.
Maybe so. Big offloading man with crazy basketball hands going on. It was actually, he had a great performance last week.
He did indeed.
It was
That's what
some way to introduce yourselves to the Six Nations was with a bit of ball handling techers.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the post-match interview on BBC kept pressing the point about the ball in two hands. The interviewer said it twice, like, would you not think of holding the ball in two hands? And just like the man, like, he was going, nah, it's easier.
The interviewer asked him that.
Yeah, it was. I thought it rather silly and missing the point.
I've always thought it was like, no, listen, it's good advice to give to a kid.
It's good advice to give to an English guy.
Loads of pundits die on that hill, the ball in two hands hill, when it's context dependent, and a lot of the time damage is done by Leone Nakarawas of the world with the ball in one hand.
Indeed,
you got to factor in that giant Fijian
the giant hand is such a factor. Like, my hand is a wee Caucasian hand. I could hold the ball in one hand, but it would be a tenuous grip I'd have, and so if I'm whirling it
to your forearm and
it's jarred, and it's out. Whereas if I increase the scale of my hand to my body by a full nearly half for some reason, it just seems to be, and like now suddenly I can maul the ball and get through contacts and get my hands free and twist it either way, and he is similarly built to do that.
Like, if you get it right, it's a weapon.
Because the other thing is, like, he can keep it away from contact. He displayed good nous in terms of not going for ones that weren't on and placing the ball well, which you can use it to do so as well. So it's like a rugby player's brain still needs to be fitted, and it's not all the be all and end all of just having giant hands, but it certainly helps. And if you have it, don't discourage it. Like, don't coach it out of it.
Really, that interview. If a young Irish talent was being interviewed like that by the press, I'd be ranting on this podcast for damn near 30 minutes. I dare say.
Yeah.
Don't do that to the young man.
No, let him carry on and create things on the pitch, which is what he was doing. But I think Noel. It's a question of what, like, it's a decision that's based on just different tools for different jobs. They're probably targeting slightly different areas this time. Probably giving him a rest, giving Noel a run as well. There's minutes at stake in this side of the World Cup, but I don't think that's where the winning or losing of the game is going to be. To be honest, I think that the wingers out that side are just going to be there to kind of do their job, and I think the damage will be done inside it.
The winning of the game will be when Nick Grigg picks up Manu Tuilagi, throws him over his own line.
Could be. Could it be? If
I'd love to see them step up.
If Grigg is to step up enough that, like, his first collision with a slight, like, if Tuilagi goes in slightly, a bit clumsily maybe, and Grigg just bullishly drives him backwards.
Or Sam Johnson either. Or
Sam
tackle.
Johnson, like, get low and drive them. Then England might question a bit of it, but be stifled, and you hear murmurs around Twickenham.
The other
but
factor,
it's such a beautiful picture that I paint that it only seems fanciful. I would sooner see Grigg, who is an industrious little tackler, just being out and matched and shunted
The
off.
other factor that you mentioned is the Farrell factor as well, that he's always
picking.
There's always very good shapes to what England do, and he's always orchestrating
it. They're putting those big men into channels where there's deception either side of them, and you can't fully commit, even though you really do have to fully commit to put them down.
Farrell is a great knack at picking the perfect pass in that scenario as well. Not to mention, like, the perfect pass could be Tuilagi, the dummy man, out the back to Henry Slade. Darcy Graham shoots up, Slade has kicked it in behind, Maitland's at sea. Maitland tries to play the ball, falls over, ball bounces up, Noel picks it up, runs in for a try. Like, that's a much more realistic picture
than the Grigg smashing Tuilagi
picture.
Back 10 metres, or a big Courtney Laws tackle on Tuilagi.
You got to feel, is Courtney Laws there?
No, George Cruz and Launchbury, and I think is Laws on the bench.
Probably on the bench.
I don't know the answer to that. I didn't look at the bench, but
Nathan Hughes coming on. I thought I heard that.
Yeah, actually, that was the same last week. There has been, the loss has been out. I'm really hopeful for Scotland. I'm hopeful, but I just doubt it. I doubt it so much. I really just think England are too much for them.
Like, I've been
with Scotland especially. I've seen nothing from them to suggest that they can go to Twickenham and win.
I've been in a positive place with Scotland for a while,
for years.
But this team now, like, it's all come quite negative on them. Hugh Jones lost his form, but they had to keep him in there because he was the only guy making a play.
Spark,
They have issues at the centre in offence.
They definitely do. In offence and defence.
Hastings could be, like, I was very sceptical of him in Glasgow colours, but he stepped up this Six Nations, and he could be a potential solution as some other distributor to throw in there. And
in the centres.
Well, somewhere.
See, that doesn't solve the soft
No,
issue.
it doesn't.
They're always facing physical disadvantages just because it seems that the players they have in those centre roles are a bit small.
I feel like
comparatively, but also they're not playing.
Yeah. But their best picture would be to maintain what they've got going in the pack right now and get their offense back to where it was.
Yeah.
Which would involves some personnel improvements, like Stuart Hogg back, obviously. But even when Hugh Jones was there, it wasn't working for them.
Yeah.
And they may need to rethink some things in there, and maybe Hastings would be a guy, or maybe Hastings off the bench would be an option. But
I don't know. I think that might be doubling down on craziness. I think someone like Dunbar back would help a bit, actually.
No, for sure, but to balance it out.
Yeah, but it's they need to plug some hole. Like obviously, you're right in saying they need to keep that attacking dimension.
But they don't have it right now. They actually need to find it again.
Don't. Yeah, no, this is like, and they're not going to without those personnel.
No, I don't think so either.
No, I think that like a key to that is you have you have your Finn Russell, you have your Hugh Jones, and you have your Stewie Hogg. And those three little acting as a fulcrum, like that's such a dynamic kind of attacking.
And Seymour in there as well, because he's got good.
They just have great wingers as well. Like,
but Seymour and Hogg in particular have
true.
Good,
they link up really well. Yeah. But like I feel like the wingers coming in or out aren't going to change the way you play. What is though is the loss of either Stewie Hogg or Hugh Jones or
although
both.
It wasn't working with Hugh Jones. Is my point.
No,
like
this year
the man is out of form. Like they're leaning on who he was, but he isn't that right now, and they may need to find that again.
Yeah.
But like that's my point, is that I'm actually less optimistic about where Scotland are than where France are.
Do you reckon?
There's a lot of negativity surrounding France, but actually the pieces are there for Brunel. If he's like, I don't know which direction he'll go, but it seems like even the thought patterns, like I'll fix this thing in the back row. Maybe I need Camille back, or I think I need to change things up and have Entomac in there. I think I need to go into like all the thought patterns. If you could put the right ones together and get rid of the bad ones,
then there's a great team.
There's actually potential for some World Cup success and maybe some shocks.
Yeah.
But
whereas with Scotland, you feel like
I just don't see how they can put it together.
Calibre wise, they're a little bit below, and they have actually lost the one thing setting them apart, which was the pace and accuracy of their attacking play and the flair and creativity.
They've got
of
a
it.
very decent top level pack that is just a little bit worse than the Irish, Welsh, English, South African.
Well, what it is very solid. Like we were saying, they can match teams. They're not as like game breaking as far as playmaking.
He is a superstar.
He is. Like, and he showed a bit of that. But like across that board, they're guys who are workhorses who do the jobs and make plays. You're not that phenomenal English pack where they do all that stuff, and also there's some crazy ball carriers and ball handlers on offloaders in there. Besides some really good
even Edinburgh
technical
have Mata in there doing
exactly
things.
Like Edinburgh match packs, and then are all ready for Edinburgh to be the catalyst, or for Mata to be the catalyst to kind of create something, a spark and go forward, and a backline that are similarly functional. And this Scotland team is resembling that Edinburgh team more and more, not just because of selection, but also the backline is just more functional, but not even. It's like functional in mindset, but it's not even proving that, because in the Six Nations you can't really get by on just that. No. And you need to produce these big moments.
Even Finn is a top class attacking 10. He thinks about the game a lot, but he if you're a great fullback, you can make things happen on your own, but as a great 10, it's really all about putting other people into space in clever ways, and there's just not just not a whole lot to work with, to be honest.
If they're not conjoined, there's no actual link.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like a flowy backline at all. It looks like a disjointed mess of players that are actually better individually than the collective. Like they're all solid players. Like I don't I don't even like in club colours I don't not rate any of those players, and I think there is potentially a team to be made out of them, but I just don't think that they know what it is. I don't think the players, once they're going through, even in training, I don't know if Finn knows what they're trying to do. I don't know if Gregor knows what he's meant to do with all this. There's vague aspirations to keep the Scotland of old, keep your mantra of being the quickest team, but then looking at your parts going,
well, I think
be that.
This week you might see, maybe you'll see them be physical and maybe be a little more conservative. Maybe you'll see them kick the ball a bit. Maybe in over the head of Noel and try and get some territory. Maybe try and attack the line out. Maybe find some vulnerabilities there. Maybe.
Hopefully.
I'm
just fishing though.
No, it's exactly it. But that's my point, is that with the three Glaswegians, there you might see Gregor move away from this. This mould of Scotland that he created over the last few years. But then when Hogg comes back, he's going to want to
just revert to type and go back. Or
the idea is he's trying to put it all together. But
they're nowhere near that now.
And they're not actually, like, when you talk about Scotland haven't got it together, France haven't got it together, and if both of them put their best teams together, you'd actually say that France is the more dangerous team to come up against.
For sure.
Yeah.
And
so
sad truth.
it's just unfortunate. I really like Scotland, but I think they'll be done.
Mm-hmm.
Like England too. England, last year we were talking about back row and centre weaknesses, and now they're probably their two of their biggest strengths. Curry at 7 is a demon,
and Underhill is still to come back. So it's depth now.
The centres are great. They found a choice little centre combination. Loads of options and loads of versatility with what you can do with it. One of the great out halves of the world right now.
Who's playing at out half. They're not getting needlessly lateral by having him 2 passes deep. Great, like whoever they pick, great wingers. One especially in Johnny May. Yeah. And maybe something to do with that fullback jersey, I still think, but. Like he looked like a world beater against Italy last week, but that was against Italy.
Many's a man has looked like a world beater against Italy.
No, it's true. But no, in general, they look a lot more balanced. They look a lot more like an English team, which is such an intangible to sight. But it's like for too long,
physical, but they're versatile.
Yeah,
and they have a smart man at 10, which is key for England because they can be
smart man
sometimes.
At 10, quick man at 9.
Yeah.
Here we go. Let's play rugby. Yeah.
So I think I'm backing them to get it done in Twickenham and perhaps in some style too.
Yeah, I kind of think so. Probably bonus points. And are they going to be champs? We were saying
I think Wales
to do it.
Wales will have it done before kick-off.
Yeah. And should it be the case that it comes down to all that, should Ireland do the job for them, I think they will be clinically seeing Scotland off. I think no fears of a Scotland upset there in that scenario. The only chance I see Scotland of having that upset come to fruition is if Wales have already secured the championship and England are in a little bit of a what are we playing for mood. Whereas if they're playing for the championship, they're
even so, it's a very strange place to be for England, isn't it? Like, because they're going to be in their pre-match prep long before full time. The chances are Eddie won't want them watching a minute of that game. So it's a weird place to be. You're just going to get the word. It's on or it's not on. Or does Eddie have a license to lie to them? He probably doesn't because he won't get away with it.
He wouldn't at all.
Yeah. Because they'd find out.
Elliot Daly will be like, "Oh no way, Wasps just tweeted," or whatever. No, they'll find out some way by hook or by crook.
Exactly.
They'll know.
It's an information age, and so they'll know that they either have it or don't. But even if they don't, I'd say you're so much in that pre-match.
This is what I was actually going to conclude at that point by saying, like, even though I see it only in that one scenario being possible, I still think it unlikely.
Because like 2 minutes into a game of rugby, it just kicks in. You're in a game of rugby. Nothing else matters.
You get one hit, you carry into contact once, and get smashed, and then you're like, all right, I'm playing
a game of rugby.
Yeah.
Regardless of what else.
It's going to be very real. It's a stacked Saturday card. It's the final day of the Six Nations.
A lot of fun. Listen,
and we've had great time covering it. I think like the last time we'll definitely look back on it next week and pick it all apart and what happened.
Talk a bit more about the under-20s as well, where Ireland have been crowned. We're going to talk a bit about the women's, where England are going to be crowned.
Talk about Georgia being crowned in Rugby Europe.
Yes, as well. And Argentina 15, the great and honourable, have already won. We had mentioned them already, but a great little tournament for Uruguay, who are looking class, which just stacks that Australia, Wales, Fiji, Georgia, Uruguay group to the nth degree.
Yes, it does.
It's just an insane pool, and we'll get into that obviously as the test arena moves on towards World Cups in time to come. And of course Super Rugby as well for all of you Kiwi and Aussie and South African fans.
If any of you
chewing at the bit, we are going to get into it as the club season.
We did have to park it for this week. I know there were games, and similarly we'll kind of turn the focus back to domestic stuff in Europe. Obviously there was all kinds of domestic things going on. We've seen a bit of what's going on. Wasn't the week for talking about them. It's only a shorter podcast than we were used to because
it's a sprightly just over an hour or so podcast. What a wee show.
Look comparatively. At us. Yeah, and in fine fettle for it. I'm not swaying from side to side quite yet. I'm sorry for it being so late this week, but thanks for watching.
The other thing is that before we wrap up, the other thing is that we had got a couple of comments. Hopefully with the time this is up we will respond to some. And just one thing I want to put out there is that we probably in the near future are hoping to set up for some live game of relative consequence. Live stream, and see if we can do answer some questions on that, and maybe cover a game live. See do some play-by-play.
It's been something we've been thinking about for a while. We're kind of logistically still working out how it would work. Just in terms of where we're putting
we
mics
saw
and how
the
we're watching the game.
10-14 do one, and it just gave us an idea. Like, hey, you could get your match clock on screen, and then maybe we just be there doing some play-by-play, being a little bit goofy, but also calling things as we see them.
Yeah,
It would be a chance maybe to answer some questions as well if anyone has any.
Yeah,
so if that's something you're interested in, by all means,
let us know.
Give us a like and
feedback on that would be nice.
Subscribe. We're over 100 now.
Yes, actually, that's the other thing. Thank you, over 100 subs. Yeah. We should have said that at the top of the show.
We should have. We should have said all this. At the
yes,
top of
I
the
know.
show.
Yeah, but how hey. But yeah, no, 100 subs. It's been a while getting there, but thank you so much.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're going to keep it going.
We're on track. We're hoping to become the first YouTube channel, I think, to reach 1 billion subscribers.
Billion.
A billion? No, just 1 billion. Yeah. And I wouldn't say we're on course, but we're on our way.
Yes.
And
one at a time.
Yeah, one at a time. Exactly.
It's the same way you climb Everest. It's 1 foot after the other.
Yep. 100%.
But yeah, thank you very much for all the support. And to all our regular subs, we love you. Thanks very much. We appreciate you. We will be answering more comments, and we'll probably, like, a few of them were on ones that we weren't actually talking about this time. We had stuff on the
World League,
the World League
and
and
Tier
all
2
the,
stuff.
some interesting points that we're definitely going to get into on a future date. But yeah, we do keep the comments, keep them coming, because we love it.
Yeah, and we'll be better about answering.
Yes, for
we
sure.
Promise.
Yes. But in the meantime, we will.
That noise.
Yes, that was the noise. We'll wrap up.
Yeah.
And, see you next week, folks.
See you,
Happy
folks.
Six Nations weekend. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Cool. You're right.
Yep. Here we go.
Nice.
That was.
You did?
Yeah. Come on.
Oh, 2 for 2. Serious.
Yes.